Once there was a talented young man named Juan. Juan belonged to the indigenous people from Mindanao. He always dreamed of sharing his talent through singing. One of his biggest dreams was to produce his own album with his original compositions and songs. His music featured the rich culture of Cotabato province.
I thought it was for real.
One day, he decided to ask help from his uncle, who was then a singer and producer from the nearby city.
Hello, Juan.
Hi, Uncle. How are you?
I'm doing great, Juan. What about you? Is everything okay?
Yes, Uncle. I'm doing good. Uncle, can you do me a favor, please?
Yes? What is it?
Can you assist me in recording and producing my own music album? It's really my biggest dream ever.
Oh yeah, I remember. You shared it with me the last time. It's a perfect time for you because my friend Brex, who is also a producer and a teacher, is currently looking for an amateur artist for his next project. He wants to produce regional and cultural music that celebrates and depicts the rich culture of a community.
Wow, that's great, Uncle, because most of my compositions and songs have a cultural background.
Another good thing is, he is giving a free apprenticeship and you'll learn a lot of things from him. I'll give him a heads up about you and I'll send his contact details to you, or you can talk to him on FaceTalk.
Wow, I'm so excited now, Uncle.
Hello, Sir Brex. Hi, Juan. How are you? Your uncle told me about you and I appreciate your passion for music. I've also heard that you wanted to produce your own album. Yes, sir. I really want to feature our original music that depicts our culture here in Mindanao, especially in Cotabato province. That's great. I commend your enthusiasm in using your talent to showcase and preserve your own culture. That's why I am more than willing to help you with that. But first, are you willing to be my apprentice? Yes, sir. I am more than willing to be your apprentice. That's good to know. So what are you waiting for? Let's get started. But before we proceed, I want to send you this module. It will be your guide as we do our discussion and our activities. I want you to know that aside from you, all my other students from all over the country will also be watching. You'll be learning important things today with the rest of them. 1. Before we proceed to our discussion, I first want to have a quick review of the lesson that I gave to my students last meeting. In our last virtual learning, we talked about how to be a competent producer of media and information by discussing the different codes and conventions in media. Today, we are going to tackle how an individual can protect his or her produced media and information. So get ready to think wisely, create smartly, and share information responsibly. In your apprenticeship, you will learn more about the different types of intellectual property, property rights, specifically the intellectual property law of the Philippines, and the guidelines of fair use. To get your warm up, let us have first an activity. Try to figure out what these terms are by filling out the blank boxes. The following terms are all associated with our topic today. I will be giving you 3 seconds to answer each item.
Number 1. Time's up. Awesome! You're right. The answer is copyright. Number 2. Time's up. Let's see if you got it right. If your answer is original work, then you are correct. Number 3. Time's up. Amazing! You are correct. The answer is property rights. Number 4. Let's check your answer. The correct word is Creative Commons. Number 5. Time is up. Let's check the last item. The correct answer is intellectual property.
How's your score, Juan?
I only got 3.
That's okay. You'll get better next time. The creativity of human beings is inarguably due to having a superior intellect. Humans continue to survive because of their ability to create or invent technology, furthering the preservation of the species.
In contemporary times, the creation of the human mind is given so much value to the extent that mechanisms to protect these creations are put in place. That's why we are here today to discuss these mechanisms in an international and local context.
First, let's discuss property rights. Property rights define the theoretical and legal ownership of resources and how they can be used. These resources can be both tangible or intangible and can be owned by individuals, businesses, and governments. One of the common types of property rights is the intellectual property. Intellectual property, or IP, as defined by the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, is the creation of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce. This property is usually intangible. In our country, we have a localized law for intellectual property. It's the Republic Act number 8293, or called the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines.
This is an act prescribing the Intellectual Property Code and establishing the Intellectual Property Office, providing for its powers and functions, and for other purposes.
I will give you a complete copy of RA number 8293. I'll send it to your email.
So Sir Brex, what is the importance and purpose of intellectual property?
Effective protection of intellectual property rights is essential to fostering creativity and to supporting our economic and financial infrastructure, as these rights create incentives for entrepreneurs, artists, firms, and investors to commit the necessary resources to research, develop, and market new technology and creative works, just like your future album.
Wow! So it means that my future album should be named or branded after me, so no one could steal it?
You're absolutely correct. To add to that, take a look at these types of intellectual property.
Number 1. Copyrights. Copyrights do not protect ideas, but rather the manner in which ideas are expressed.
With certain exceptions, copyrights allow the owner of the protected materials to control reproduction, performance, new versioning or adaptations, public performance, and distribution of the works. The coverage of the copyrights are the following: books, music, paintings, advertisements, films, databases, maps, and technical drawings.
Number 2. Patent. A patent is used to protect inventive ideas or processes, things that are new, useful, and non-obvious. Patents are also used to protect newly engineered plant species or strains.
The coverage of a patent is the exclusive right granted for an invention.
Number 3. Trademark. A trademark is unlike a patent in that it protects words, phrases, symbols, sounds, smells, and color schemes. Trademarks are often considered assets that describe or otherwise identify the source of underlying products or services that a company provides.
The coverage of trademarks are brand names, product names, company logos, and slogans.
Number 4. Industrial design. Industrial design constitutes the ornamental or aesthetic aspect of an article or object.
The coverage of industrial designs are designs of an object, shape or surface, patterns, lines, or colors.
Number 5. Geographical indication and appellation of origin. These are signs used on goods that have a specific geographical origin and possess qualities, a reputation, or characteristics that are essentially attributable to that place of origin.
The coverage of geographical indication and appellation of origin is the name of the place of origin of the goods or products. Did you know that these privileges have also their limitations and validity period? Let's take a look. The copyright of a literary work is valid during the lifetime of the author, plus 50 years after his or her death. The copyright of artwork is valid 25 years from the date of creation. The copyright of photographic works and audiovisual works is valid 50 years from the date of publication. Sound recordings copyright is valid 50 years from the year the recording took place. Broadcast recordings copyright is valid 20 years from the date of broadcast. A trademark is valid for 10 years and may be renewed for a period of 10 years. An invention patent is valid for 20 years from the date of application.
Let's further discuss the most common intellectual property, the copyright. Copyright is mainly the protection of one's expressions, which only becomes tangible and concrete when objects are created as manifestations of these expressions.
Copyright does not cover ideas, procedures, methods of operation, or mathematical concepts because no person or institution can claim sole ownership of these. Sufficient authorship must exist for these to be covered by copyright. Even titles, slogans, or logos may or may not have copyright. If you are the author of a particular work, you are entitled to two types of rights under copyright law. These are the following. Economic rights, the rights of an owner or author to be properly compensated financially upon his or her permission for the work to be used by another. And moral rights, the rights to non-economic interests of the author.
How can I acquire those rights? The Berne Convention for the Protection of Literary and Artistic Works, usually known as the Berne Convention, is an international agreement governing copyright which was first accepted in Bern, Switzerland in 1886.
It deals with the protection of works and the rights of their authors, musicians, poets, painters, etc., with the means to control how their works are used, by whom, and on what terms.
According to Section 172 of the Intellectual Property Code, literary and artistic works refer to the original and intellectual creations that are protected from the moment of their creation. The list of the literary and artistic works include the following:
books, pamphlets, articles and other writings, periodicals and newspapers, lectures, sermons, addresses, dissertations prepared for oral delivery, letters, dramatic compositions, choreographic works or entertainment, musical compositions with or without words, drawings, paintings, architectural sketches, sculptures, engravings, lithography or other works of art, models or designs for works of art, original ornamental designs or model for articles for manufacture, illustrations, maps, plans, sketches, charts, and three-dimensional works relative to geography, topography, architecture, or science, drawings or plastic works of a scientific or technical character, photographic works, audio-visual works, and cinematographic works, pictorial illustrations and advertisements, computer programs, other literary, scholarly, scientific, and artistic works.
In the Philippines, the intellectual property law specifies certain limitations or exceptions to copyright. This is called fair use. When you wish to copy an entire work or portions of it, even when the copyright holder fails to give his or her permission, fair use may be invoked in certain occasions.
The rationale of fair use is to guarantee some breathing space for new expression within the confines of the copyright law. In other words, if copyright holders have complete control of their works, information may be constrained and restrained from ever reaching a wider audience.
So, what works are covered by fair use? Good question!
The work is covered by fair use when it is a criticism or a commentary, a parody, a news report, an artistic expression or artifact. Scholarly and research works, a product of a time-shifting device such as a TV program recorder, or a piece of information found through web search engines.
There are also 4 factors considered for fair use. These are the purpose and character of your use, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality of the portion taken, and the effect of the use upon the potential market. But for beginners like you, or to those who have limited access to the original works that you want to adapt or borrow, we have the so-called Creative Commons. It is an American nonprofit organization and international network devoted to educational access and expanding the range of creative works available for others to build upon legally and to share.
It can give people the right to share, use, and even build upon a work, as well as protect users against the threat of copyright infringement, with the condition that these users abide by the conditions specified by the owner or holder of the copyright. Before we end our discussion, I want you to watch our guest for today. He is a producer and a film director based in Los Angeles, California, USA.
He is none other than Mr. Jeff Solema. He will be giving you some important reminders about our topic and some tips if you want to be a content creator someday.
As a filmmaker and producer, I think it's important to always look out for other people's work. The last thing you want to do is to use their intellectual property, their IP, without their permission. I think it just gives mutual respect and knowing that their IP is of value, that you will actually go and ask them for their permission to use their own product to add to yours. I can't stress enough how important that is, because if you do not and you just take it outright, a few consequences can happen. One is in the international business of selling and making sure that the other people's properties aren't being taken, such as like a song without their permission, or an image, or even their likeness. Your product or your item or whatever it is that you're creating can actually be blocked, censored, or just not be available for sale because of that. So protect yourself. You should always be on the lookout for other people's IP and making sure that you don't take it. How you can protect your own IP. Now, there's a few ways to do this. One is, there's a couple of places. If you're a writer and you want to protect your script, you can actually go to Writers Guild of America, WGA.org. For a small fee, at least you know somewhere it is being copyrighted. I don't know other locations in the world, but for the US, you go to WGA.org, which is the Writers Guild of America, or on top of that, you can go to copyright with the US government. My advice to content creators and young filmmakers and writers and such to protect your own IP is to follow all the steps in making sure that your work is protected. Because if you don't protect your work, then someone else is going to take it. For sure, someone else is going to take it. And if you respect it enough and you value it enough, you will make that added step to make sure that you go out and protect it.
Thank you so much for sharing your precious time with us, Sir Jeff. It means a lot to our future content creators.
I hope that you had a great time studying with me today. Now, let's have a quick recap of our topic. These are the key concepts that we discussed today. Number 1, property rights. Number 2, intellectual property. And number 3, fair use guidelines.
Property rights define the theoretical and legal ownership of resources and how they can be used. Intellectual property is the creation of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce. Fair use guidelines permits the limited use of copyrighted material without having to first acquire permission from the copyright holder.
For our last activity, I will be showing you several statements and you need to analyze if the statement is correct or not based on our discussions. If you think that the statement is correct, press the happy face icon. And if you think the statement is wrong, press the sad face icon. Are you ready? Let's begin. Number 1. Republic Act 8293, also known as the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines, prescribes the Intellectual Property Code, establishing the Intellectual Property Office and providing for its powers and functions related to intellectual property issues. Time's up. What's your reaction here? You're right, it's a happy face. RA 8293 protects the rights of artists, inventors, and original creators as to how their work can be used and reproduced by other people. Item number 2. You cannot freely use videos from Creative Commons since it doesn't allow people to use or share any of the material. Time's up. Let me see your answer. The correct reaction here is a sad face. You can use material from Creative Commons as long as you abide by the rules set by the owner. Number 3.
Copyright is mainly the protection of one's expressions, which only becomes tangible and concrete when objects are created as manifestation of these expressions.
Now, let's see your third answer. Great! The answer is a happy face. A copyright is your legal right in possessing intellectual property. Item number 4. Intellectual property or IP is the creation of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce. Time's up. What's your reaction? You're right, it's a happy face. Intellectual property is any intangible creation of the human intellect. The last item. Fair use permits the limited use of copyrighted material without having to first acquire permission from the copyright holder. Let's check the last item. What's your answer here? You're right, it's a happy face. Fair use policy allows non-profit educational institutions to use someone else's original and copyrighted work guided by specific rules and guidelines. How many correct answers did you get, Juan?
I got a perfect score, Sir Brex.
Congratulations, Juan. You've made it this far. We are now done with our first session. After this, we can already start recording your songs.
Wow, thank you so much, Sir Brex, for this jam-packed learning session with you. I have learned a lot of things today, and rest assured that I will use everything I learned today as we start creating my music album. I am so excited to work on it.
You're welcome, Juan. And to my students who are still watching now, if you have any questions or comments about our topic, or if you might want to share your learnings today, you can post them on our official Facebook page at DepEd TV MIL and use the hashtag MIL Responsible Creator. I know that the freedom to express yourself and to voice out your opinions comes with the heavy responsibility of doing it ethically. Don't forget the important things that we discussed. And as we create new ideas and works as individuals or as a group, may we sustain the respect that everybody deserves to get, especially for their original works. Before I end our virtual call, let me first give you some food for thought. It's mealtime! Chris Jammy, also known as the Philosopher, an American poet and philosopher, once said that when you have wheat of your own, it's a pleasure to credit other people for theirs. That concludes our virtual learning today. In the next episode, we will be learning how to combat the digital divide, addiction, and bullying. Always remember, think wisely,
Create smartly, and share information responsibly.
My name is Sir Brex.
Until next time here on DepEd TV.